In this video, I'll be building this hardware bin storage rack for my workshop. And this will contain these recycled nut containers. So my first step is to cut the stock to length, and I'm using some reclaimed 2x2 cedar that I actually had used outside. It's been drying out indoors for a long time, so pretty stable. I'm just going to have to cut off the ends here. I've already sanded it down to remove some of the weathering. And first I'm just going to cut off the ends here with my miter saw. I'm just ganging up 2 pieces to make it a little bit quicker. And keeping in mind it is for the shop, I'm not too worried about a little bit of damage here and there on the wood or some discoloration. So the first thing I'm going to do is cut the horizontal cross pieces to 36 inches, and I'm just lining up the mark that I made, the pencil mark I made, and then I'm going to set up a stop block. And this is on my new miter bench, which has a built-in T-track, and the knob on this stop block is a little bit too big. I'm going to have to actually swap it out for a littler one because I'm finding that the boards are actually hitting the knob, but that's okay. So one cut, got 2 pieces, and then just continue, slide these guys back over and line them up on the end, and then cut another 2. And we've got 4 of them. And I'm just going to go and grab some more pieces of wood. These ones haven't been sanded down yet. You can see that they're fairly weathered, but we'll sand them down later. This one is especially weathered. So you can see here, this is what happens to cedar when it's outdoors. It just turns this weathered gray. And luckily this weathering, for the most part, does sand off okay. That piece was really damaged on the end, so I just cut a little bit more off. Got lots of extra. And cutting there. And then we've got now 6 pieces. So now I'm going to measure for the verticals. Cut them to length. And so we're going to go through the same process here. Line it up and move the stop over. And in hindsight, I probably should have just rotated the stop 90 degrees, and then that would have gotten the knob out of the way, but that's something I'll keep in mind for next time. First time really using this stop block, so I'm getting used to it still. So there's 2, and I need 1 more, so I've got another piece here. Again, one that I haven't sanded yet, which I'll do later. And got all 3 pieces for the uprights. Actually, I'll need 3 more. So off camera, I actually cut 3 more of those. And now I'm using my newest acquisition to the shop, my newest tool acquisition, which is my DeWalt random orbital sander. And this thing works really great. I don't have it yet set up on my shop vac, so I'm just using the included little bag, which fills up pretty quick, so I will have to eventually get it set up on the shop vac. But as you can see, it's cleaning up fairly well. There's still going to be some marks and some of the weathering left and remaining, and I don't worry about that too much because again, this is just in the shop and I'm not looking for a perfect piece. So, but as you can see, some parts actually sand down better than others depending on how smooth the grain is. And yeah, it's just basically just sanding away, sanding away, sanding away. I won't show you the sanding of everything because that would be pretty boring. So, but just to give you an idea of how easy it is to clean up these boards that were outside. So now that I've got all my pieces prepped, I'm just now in the process of laying things out, trying to have a look and see where the best kind of sides are, and trying to face those forward. Not too worried about that, but it's always a good idea when you're doing anything to try to pick the nicest sides to face forward. And so then I'm laying out the verticals here, and sorry for my face there. One more, again checking just to see. These will be mainly hidden anyways. And then the final 3 horizontals, which go there, and one more at the top, sandwiched in. There's quite a bit of weathering there, so what I decided to do is I'm just going to pop that on the bottom, which is going to be against the wall, so it won't be as visible. And so just swapping those 2 out and getting everything lined up. And then I'm just going to grab one of the empty bins and see how things look. I think that'll be fine. But later I'll notice that it wasn't actually fine, but that's alright. I'll show you what I do to fix it at the end of the video. And then we'll move those ones on top away and get started on this side. So what I'm going to do is first measure out the middle of all of these 3 horizontals, and just measuring 18 inches, which is the middle, making a mark on each 3 of them. And unfortunately my arm's in the way, but what I did is I marked the middle at 18 inches, and then I basically made another mark 3/4 of an inch on either side of that mark to show me where either side of the vertical pieces will actually land. So next time I'll have to make sure I have the camera set up properly so you can actually see what I'm doing. Sorry about that. So anyways, yes, I'm putting in basically the 3 marks there, and then going to lay them out again. And in hindsight, I should have done that first, of course. And I'm just measuring now 3.5 inches, which is the distance between these horizontals. But then come up with a better way, which is actually just to grab some scrap 2x4 material, which is 3.5 inches wide, and use that as spacers. That actually makes a lot more sense. And then I'm putting the verticals in place, just roughly for now. And next step is going to be screwing them in place. So because these are fairly narrow and also it's very close to the end of the boards, I'm just using a drill bit to drill some holes in to make sure we don't split the wood. And my drill bit, I think, was a little bit on the dull side. And because I need to actually fasten it from both sides, I drilled through that one as well. And this is a step where I actually wasted some time. First of all, secure your drill bit properly in the drill chuck so it doesn't move. The problem with this drill is it's an older model, and the drill chuck doesn't always tighten enough. And then I'm going to screw in these top ones And another mistake I made here was I should have just drilled all the holes first. So I don't have to switch between the drill bit and the screwdriver bit. If you want to be efficient, you have to think about those kind of things and kind of batch out tasks so you're not having to switch tools or bits. But anyways, I'm drilling through. The other mistake I made actually is I probably shouldn't have used 3-inch screws. Unfortunately, I screwed into that bottom piece and that caused some problems, so I had to actually back the screw out a bit. Could have probably used like 2.5-inch screws, because what I'm going to do is actually screw those back pieces, the ones on the very bottom, into the uprights from the back, which I'll show you in a sec what I do there. But yes, I should have probably used shorter screws for this. I thought the 3-inch screws might actually go into all three, but no, the math is wrong, because the 2x2s are 1.5 inches thick. So those screws are going in only into the first top two in that layer. So like I said, drilling. Here I was a little bit smarter and actually drilled 2 holes and then switched over to the drill bit. I am also not putting these screws directly in the middle, because I am going to be screwing in from the other side as well, and I don't really want the screws to hit each other. Again, it would have been smarter to use 2.5-inch long screws, because then I wouldn't have to necessarily worry about that. So here I am putting, again, my spacers back in so that I can space out the next horizontal. And I'm probably being more precise than I really need to be, but that's alright. And yeah, again, switching drill bits. Probably should have done this a little bit more efficient, but you know, you learn. And the other thing you can do too is, if you've got 2 drills, which I actually do have, you could actually have one set up with the drill bit and one set up with the screwdriver bit, and then you wouldn't have to do the switching around. I'll probably do that next time. It's just I didn't want to pull out the other drill, which is in a case. And moving my spacers up. Making sure everything's lined up. Drilling holes. And this time I was smart and I actually drilled all 3 holes. You learn as you go along to be more efficient. And that's all the part of learning. As you do more and more woodworking, you learn to be more efficient. You learn to do things a little bit more logical. Mind you, I didn't learn to use shorter screws for the second one, but now I know. And yeah, basically rinse and repeat. You know the drill by now, pun intended. And again, just lining everything up and continuing on. Now I'm not using glue. I probably should have, maybe, but I wasn't sure actually if this would actually all work out, and you'll see later why it didn't, and it was actually good that I did not glue these in place, because I had to make some modifications. But essentially the screws should hold it together quite well. And this may just end up being a temporary rack until I can maybe make something more fancy. But this is at least doing the trick in terms of having a place to store my hardware, which right now is making a huge mess on my workbench. So that part's done. Or that side's done at least. And I'm just going to flip it over now because maybe I'll check first and see. How does that work? Not too bad. I'm basically simulating it being against the wall with the wedges on the back that I'll add later to get it to tip a little bit towards the wall to keep the bins from falling out. And so I'm going to go through the process now of attaching the back ones in the same manner, and I'll try to get through this fairly quick because it's kind of boring. Actually, I think I skip over this showing you how I lay it out, but then I'll save you the having to watch me drill holes again and screw in again, because that took a few minutes of time. Okay, so now that we've got everything screwed together, now I need to make the kind of wedge blocks on the back that will actually also serve as a mounting point to mount this on the wall. So what I'm making is basically a tapered wedge, and to do that I'm just putting on a guide piece of plywood, some short screws. Not too worried about the screw holes in this piece because you probably won't see them. Just using 2 short screws here and lining it up so that basically I'm just putting this edge of the plywood along a line that spans from opposite point to opposite point. Alright, so done. So now I first decided I was going to try using the bandsaw to cut this, and I ended up actually cutting into the plywood, which was probably not a good idea. For some reason my bandsaw just didn't want to cut through this, and it was just, I don't know why it was getting stuck. So I decided to instead try this on the table saw. And please don't follow my lead here. I didn't actually have the right push sticks or the right proper... These push sticks are actually not very good. You'll see in a moment that I'm actually, the piece is dangerously lifting up. So I ended up using a pad to kind of push it down. But I bought something else that will make these types of rips a lot safer, which I'll do a review video on soon. Okay, so there's the tapered wedges that I created. I'm just using 2, even though the design had 3. I figured out that 2 would actually work just as well and actually will save a bit of time. And I really should have used better pieces. You can see that one piece actually has a split in it and kind of separated when I drilled into it, which was not good. I'm just now marking where that second hole will be, and I'm not going to bother, and just making sure that I'm putting the hole in the right place. I'm not really bothering with the top part. I figure 2 screws is strong enough to hold these on. And then the other thing I want to do is just mark in, I forget, I think it was about 10 inches or maybe 12 inches. Let's see, 10 inches maybe? Yes, I marked in about 10 inches just to make them even so it doesn't look too wonky. And doing the same at the top or the middle, horizontal, again marking 10. And then it's just a matter of screwing them in. So I ended up using a shorter screw at the top That's about 1.25 inches maybe. And then I used slightly longer screw at the bottom. I think this is about a 2-inch. So just making sure they're tight. And I'm not going to rely entirely on these wedges to hold this unit to the wall. I will screw in through the top most horizontal piece as well, which you'll see when I have it on the wall. Okay, so just putting these on, and done. So I didn't bother taking a video of actually putting it on the wall, but I'll show you where I put screws in. You can see I've already put some of these containers on just to see how they fit. So I put one screw in there, and I put screws in through that topmost vertical, and there's a screw in the back that's hidden by the bin. So all in all, I'm pretty happy with it, although I'm finding that these bins are kind of not as supported as I would like them to, especially at the top where there's no horizontal piece. So I'll show you in a moment what I did to fix that. You can see I have lots of fasteners, and I'm actually probably not going to have enough room for all of them, but I'll try my best. So here is where I did a fix. I actually ended up taking this unit apart and putting in another vertical, which makes things a little bit better, especially if all the fasteners are towards the front. And I guess I need to do some labeling. Thanks for watching.